This is the Hard Thing Podcast. Welcome to The Forge. Welcome back to another episode of the Hard Thing Podcast. This is The Forge, where we help you improve your lives by doing hard things. We're here in the trenches with you, showing you what it looks like to do hard things by putting ourselves on trial, you could say. Putting ourselves to the test and taking up these challenges so that way you know what it looks like and so that way you go and do it yourself. Today, again, is our Thursday show. I'm your host, Justin Lewis. Usually I'm here with my co-host, Ty Crockett. I'm flying solo this week. Hopefully Ty will be back with us next week. But without further ado, let's hop into today's show. So, because Ty's not here, we're not going to talk about his old challenge, which was to book a trip or something like that. He'll probably be able to talk to us about that next week. Let's talk about our action items from this last week's podcast. So this last week, I was able to talk with Christian Espinosa. It was a fun conversation, really interesting, a lot about interpersonal relationships and really what to do there. So the first action item he gave was to make sure we access personal development resources. And the way I describe this is, if you're listening to this show, likely you enjoy or have thought about working out, physical fitness, something like that. And there's a chance that you maybe have thought about drinking protein drinks or taking protein supplements, things like that. Well, in order to have maximum effectiveness, you can't just take a protein drink right after you work out and expect that the protein will be delivered to the right sources. Ideally, your diet throughout your whole day will consist of enough protein that your body has a protein-rich environment. So all the muscles that need protein, when they need to rebuild the muscles, because that's what happens when you work out, you tear the muscles, and then they use protein and other nutrients to rebuild. You need to create a healthy protein-rich environment so that way, when those muscles need those materials to build muscle, it's readily available. Well, it's the same way with personal development. Your mind is constantly taking in media and information and almost in a more spiritual sense, just kind of intent, you could say, from everything around us. The people, the media you consume, all of it. The things you do, all of it. So with that in mind, in order to have a mindset or a mind that is constantly looking for growth, constantly willing to be challenged, constantly willing to undergo discomfort that you can gain reward, you have to create a nutrient-rich environment for your mind so that way you can be smarter and you can be willing to accept challenges and be humble and things like that. That's not easy. That's why you need to always access personal development resources. Things like this podcast, honestly. I am super lucky because I get to have these conversations with high-performing individuals, people who have done things that I, didn't think was possible for me, but they're normal people, so why can't I do it? You know what I mean? And it's constantly these reminders of, am I living up to my potential? And it's really interesting because I've noticed that I'm a big fan of fantasy books and things like that, but I've noticed that I have this propensity to kind of go into these binge phases, you could say. So I'll download like 10 books from the library app, from some of my favorite authors, and I'll just go through them rapid fire, but it takes like a week and a half, and by that time, I can honestly tell you there's a major difference between my psyche and my mental state, my motivation, and then compare that to when I'm listening to podcasts and thinking about things in a forward way and really trying to grow. There's a big difference. Not that you can't strike a balance. In fact, I'm working on that now, and I'm really trying to go through podcasts during the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day, I can splurge on listening to some of my fiction authors and things like that, because I really enjoy that. I really do. But it's like having nutrients versus junk food, really. And not that fiction is junk food, because I do believe that there's a time and a place for fiction, but I think protein is more comparable to personal development books and things like that. Anyways, you understand my point. What I'm saying is you need to constantly surround yourself with influences that are propelling you towards where you want to be, not influences that pertain to some other lifestyle, some other destination. Also, on that note, it's a good time to announce that on the Hard Thing Podcast website, soon there will be released more resources for you to do hard things. So we're giving you this podcast, right? So you're hearing us talk about these things, but maybe you need a little bit more hands-on coaching or other types of resources. I'm excited to say that in the future, there will be options on the Hard Thing Podcast website where you can access resources like coaching and things like that in various faculties and industries to help you get where you want to be, because we really want to help you do hard things and overcome average. So keep an eye out for that. That's in the near future. The second action item we got was to use your gut, heart, and mind in making decisions. And I think in this, sometimes you might get kind of a 2 out of 3 situation. So maybe your gut and your mind are saying, yes, this is a good idea. Or maybe your gut and your heart are saying it's a good idea and your mind's not. Sometimes there are situations where our mind just can't catch the nuances, but our heart and our gut can. And it's tough because in situations like this, you might be wrong sometimes. And that's going to help you calibrate knowing when you're right and when you're wrong in the future. But you're going to have to take that leap of faith and understand that, yeah, it is difficult. And you will need to make choices sometimes with not all the information. One good example is I was recently introduced to the opportunity of selling a specific type of insurance in order to make some extra money. And I was really contemplating on whether I should take this opportunity or not, because at first it was something that wasn't going to take up too much time. And the more I delved into it, the more I realized that, yes, in order to really make this worthwhile, I would have to devote large amounts of time to it. So I racked my brain, my heart, and my gut. And in the end, I just didn't feel, it made sense to my mind, but in my heart and my gut, it just didn't make sense to me. Something just didn't add up. And I'm glad I didn't do that, because now I'm devoting more time to my podcast and having more developments there. But also my wife and I are actually moving. We're looking for a place. And I think if I had been involved in this insurance business and been working on that, I don't think we would be where we are making the decisions we are. I think we would be much more reactionary. So I'm grateful that I did listen to my gut in that instance and really go with my gut, I guess you could say. So the third action item was to listen for insight. Listen for insight. And, this one's so tough, especially for people like me who always think they're right and always, for some reason, I need to be validated in giving value. I feel like I need to prove my worth. And so whenever there's a conversation about something I know even just a little bit about, I'll add in like little insights or tidbits there just to feel like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. But you can't do that. You got to stop. What you got to do instead is realize that many times what you have to say is not as important as what the other person has to say. Not because the content isn't as valuable, but maybe you've been listened to too much and you need to listen to the other person in turn. I found that sometimes you just need to stop talking. And actually, a good example of this is, so my wife and I have different schedules, obviously. I wake up a little bit earlier than her, and I work on this podcast a little bit. And then when we kind of get a moment in the day to convene and see how each other are doing at the very earliest of the day, I've been awake for a while. I've probably worked out a little bit. Not that I do it every day. I'm not the best, but I'm much more awake and excited and energetic than her. And I just want to talk and tell her everything that's going on in my life, and this is like 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And she's just still waking up. And I realized that this habit persisted so that every morning our conversations would revolve around me rather than her. But lately I've been taking the tack of not telling her things that I'm excited about or things like that, and trying to spend a little bit more time being in her space, not necessarily talking, but being there so she can talk while she's waking up. And I found that it's really improved our relationship and helped us connect in better ways, because I'm not just browbeating her with all the exciting things going on in my life and blah, blah, blah. Instead, we're connecting and we're building our relationship, because I think that's the true goal. Obviously, it's not to have me talk and share my beautiful life with her. Instead, it's for us to connect and become better husband and wife. So that's one example from my own personal life of how I've tried to implement this and really the benefits that I've seen from it. So those are the 3 action items. Access personal development resources, use your gut, heart, and mind, and listen for insight. Now, another word from our sponsor, and I mean, this is kind of self-serving, but I'd like to invite you guys to check out The Forge. Now, you're probably thinking The Forge is the name of this show, and you're right. But The Forge is the name also of a free community that we've created to help you connect with other people who are like you, trying to do hard things. It's a great place for you to share your struggles, find support, and support others in turn. And you actually get bonus content of the podcast that you can only find at The Forge. So if you want to sign up for The Forge for free, go to theforge.mn.co, sign up for free today, so that way you can start getting bonus content, get connected with other people who are trying to do hard things, and overcome average. Now, obviously we don't have Ty here, so I can't give him some new challenges. So I would just like to give you guys a challenge. I would like to challenge you guys to read a full book between now and next Thursday. Read a full book. And if you're looking for any help in that arena, I can certainly give you recommendations. Hit me up on Instagram at The Hard Thing Podcast. But I also like to talk about Operation Underground Railroad. As always, we're here trying to support them, trying to tell people about their mission, which is to rescue kids from sex trafficking. They're actually a nonprofit organization, so they do it all out of donations and things like that. So if you want to help us raise $1,000 for them, go to gofundme.com/overcoming-average, donate some money to our campaign to donate money to them later on. It's just a simple little goal that we set up for ourselves to try and generate $1,000 for Operation Underground Railroad. Thank you guys so much for listening. Stay tuned for our podcast episode coming out on Monday. We have an excellent show with an excellent guest. But until then, keep doing hard things, because you will overcome average.